entrepreneurs think they'll price themselves out of the room if they charge too much. But what entrepreneurs don't talk about nearly enough is pricing themselves out of the room because they charge too little. I'm Codner Co, founder of FeelWell and editor-in-chief of FeelWell magazine, and this is Building Well, where I bring you what makes my brain tick as I move through Black Ambition's Fundable Founders Learning Labs. Today, Vincent Hunt told us about one of his first government bids. He thought undercutting everybody would help him win. This proposal got tossed. Have you ever had that happen to you? And it wasn't because it was too expensive. It was because his proposal was so cheap that the price signaled you probably don't understand the scope of this work. And that made my brain rewind. I've been coaching and consulting women entrepreneurs for 15 years, and I cannot tell you how many times I've watched a woman fight me to the death about why she should not charge more. Tell her to lower something? Cool. Tell her to raise the price? Now we've got a full courtroom case. My audience won't pay that. They can't afford that. That's too much. I'm doing it for the community. People in my industry just don't charge that. I don't want to price myself out. I've heard everything under the sun when I tell women in business to raise their prices. And what I want you to realize is that when most people hear pricing yourself out of the room, they immediately assume the price was too high. But Vince's story reminded me that sometimes the price that removes you from consideration is the one that was too low. A premium price sends a signal. An average price sends a signal. A low price, y'all, is sending a signal. And I know this personally. When I first became an entrepreneur, I started as a life coach. I remember getting my very first client and I was so happy, over the moon, and charging her $60 an hour. Every 2 weeks, I would drive about 20 minutes to meet her at Whole Foods. I would usually buy her a coffee or something while we were there. I had worksheets, preparation, the gas it took to get there, the time it took to drive there and back, the cost of acquiring the client, and the actual hour I spent coaching her. In my mind, I was making $60 an hour. But when I eventually learned to look at the actual numbers, I realized I was really making somewhere around $35. But then something else started to happen. I started seeing what the work was actually producing. She started her nonprofit. She became bolder and more confident. She began raising money, and the value didn't stop with her. The money she raised benefited the children she was raising it for. Our work together affected their experiences, their opportunities, and potentially what they would go on to create and contribute in the world. It also brought her partnerships and recognition, and that made me understand something about value differently. Your business can create a long-term value domino effect. The person paying you may be the first recipient of the value, but they are most certainly not the last. When you create in one person, you can create something in another person and another person and another person. So I started seeing the long-term value being created from the value I was providing. And that goes back into last week's session where we talked about long money versus short money. And that was one of the first shifts I ever had in how I viewed the importance of pricing. Because one of the tenets of value-based thinking is that you have to learn how to look at the long game. Back to long money. What is the long-term result? That's legacy. What foundation are you helping someone build? How much additional value can they create because of the value you provided? How much money can a company potentially create, save, protect, or access because of what you delivered? We are so used to short-term thinking, y'all, that we will price an hour instead of understanding the value exchange happening over time. And eventually, I learned something else. Stop one-offing everything. I learned to package my services and think differently about delivery. Because when everything is item by item, hour by hour, line by line, you can start looking at your business like a job instead of understanding the full transformation you are creating. And that brings me right back to the signals. Your pricing is communicating something at all times. Now, quick language shift. I was about to say, here's my 2 cents on this, right? But Absolutely not. We don't want to do 2-cent commentary over here. The language that we casually repeat is still language our subconscious hears. So when I catch language that reduces the way I think about myself, my ideas, my work, or my value, I've got to change the language. So you'll hear me often do that in this series. So here is my $1 million commentary. We need to stop calling everything a money mindset problem. When it comes to pricing, I think a lot of us have a value mindset problem. Because your price tells me something about how you value the work, the expertise, the result, and sometimes yourself inside the delivery. And let me be clear, because there's another side to this conversation too that we cannot overlook. Some people want to charge premium prices with bargain bin delivery. You can't demand the check, y'all, and disrespect the value. The price and the value need to be able to look each other in the face. Then we got into revenue versus profit. Revenue is what the customer hands you. Profit is what is left after you actually deliver the thing. This was Vincent's lesson on revenue versus profit. And this is where entrepreneurs, I see, start making up prices from the sky. I cannot tell you how many times I've asked a woman that I've been coaching, well, where'd you get that price? How'd you make up that price? And there is literally no science to how the price came to be. It is typically because my competitor charges $2,000, I'll charge $2,000, or it was just a feeling that I had in my gut. The number came to me out of the sky. And that's okay. But when you're looking at your competitors, here's the questions that you need to ask. Do you have their costs? Do you have their team? Do you have their materials, their systems, their overhead? No? Then why are you borrowing their price? And the number one cost I see many entrepreneurs, especially women in business, leaving out of the equation is the person delivering the service. You, the person putting the products together. Your labor is not free because your name is on the LLC. The CEO has a cost. The founder has a cost. Your time has a cost. Time is one of our most valuable, non-renewable resources. We hear it time and time again as entrepreneurs. You can make another dollar, but you cannot manufacture another Tuesday. And that's where Vincent raised another valuable point that immediately connected to what I've seen with women for years. Sometimes what looks like a pricing problem is really a capacity problem. If every sale takes more of you than the price can afford, eventually the business grows by draining you. And that is where this becomes very FeelWell for me. Women are building businesses. They are most certainly leading, creating, producing, and yes, we should celebrate that. But at what rate are women burning out while we clap for the business? How many women are generating revenue but not enough profit to buy back time, support, infrastructure, or capacity? Because your price is supposed to help you expand. It should create room, bandwidth, support, time, a wider capacity to think, create, lead, and live. And if the business can only grow by taking more and more out of you, the woman who built it, I need us to start asking whether that business model actually feels well. Wealth, energy, longevity, leadership, and legacy. And that conversation about capacity naturally leads into risk, because building something that expands you will require you to make decisions without guarantees. One of the reasons this is called a learning lab with Black ambition is because we're constantly given tools that allow us to look at our own businesses, run our own numbers, test our thinking, and get real-time feedback on what the data is actually showing us. During one of those moments, there was some back and forth around what one of the tools was really revealing. And our program manager, Folashade, spoke up very boldly and very necessarily, if I might add, and reminded us, no matter the tool, you cannot mitigate risk as an entrepreneur. In other words, if you don't like what the data is showing you, that does not automatically mean the tool is broken. The true probability is that something in your business is broken. Most times, the tool, the formula, is doing exactly what it is supposed to do. showing you something that you need to see that you have been missing all along. Vincent added that entrepreneurship requires a high tolerance for risk, and I, for one, could not agree more. I have friends who could not stomach half of the things I have subjected myself to over more than 15 years of entrepreneurship. Things I have risked, things I have lost, things that just didn't work, y'all. Money I have spent without knowing exactly how it was going to come back. Moves I have made without a guarantee attached to them. And this is why I also think entrepreneurs need to be in conversation with other entrepreneurs. Hence, one of the hidden values of this Black Ambition Fundable Founders Learning Lab, the opportunity to commune with like minds. And this is also why I like creating events for entrepreneurs to gather and for women in business and leadership to gather as well. Because sometimes the people around you who are not entrepreneurs genuinely think you're crazy. And from their perspective, to be fair, you just might be. Because they may not have the tolerance for the amount of uncertainty, ambiguity, and risk that comes with building something from nothing. Me, I feel like I can risk, I can lose, I can learn, and I can still go to sleep at night for whatever the amount of hours are that I'm sleeping. And I can still get back up the next day, energized, enthused, and ready to move. I do not have to make the failure my identity. And it took me several years to actually learn that. But this also made me think about something else. Sometimes risk feels intolerable when what you're risking for is not connected deeply enough to something you actually care about. I think that's why I've been able to risk. Risk feels different when there is something on the other side that you are deeply committed to creating, changing, or impacting. And once you take the risk, the next question becomes, what did it tell you? Because sometimes what you were hoping it would tell you is not what you get. And then Vince brought us back to the data, the importance of tracking our stuff, our hours, how we're investing our time, what we're contributing to our business. And I think that this is extremely important because it shows you the value. So track your stuff, y'all. Because if you're not tracking, you are in fact guessing. And if you keep guessing, you can repeat the same pattern for years and then just call it bad luck. We do this with business all the time. I've seen it. We do it with business, with money, relationships, health, habits. Then the facts show up and we start twisting them because we don't like what they say. But the data does not need you to like it. I don't always like it. The data just needs us to read it, understand it, and digest it. Revenue is data. Profit is data. Your calendar, the analytics, it's all data. Your bank account, your journal, still data. Patterns leave receipts. And Vincent's final reminder was super simple, but still important. Be super honest about your numbers. Because numbers are a reflection. They tell you what was, what is, and what's going to be. Your numbers are going to help you determine whether you are actually moving toward what you keep saying you want. And your numbers, they don't lie. The number is not your identity. It is just information, necessary information. And in order to know whether you are getting closer to the life, the business, and the woman or man you see in your mind, you have to be willing to look at the reflections of your life and say, this is what it was, this is what it is, and this is where I'm going. So here's what I want you to sit with from this video. What are your numbers saying about how you value yourself, your time, and your work? Is your price actually creating profit for you? Is your profit creating capacity for you? And is your capacity creating a life that allows you to feel well? And if the answer is no, are you willing to stop explaining the numbers and finally tell yourself the truth about them? Because maybe your next level does not need another motivational speech. Maybe it needs honesty. And if you want to do this work with me, I've created something that is complimentary for you to download, the FeelWell Profit and Capacity Audit. Because I know what it's like to not want to face that truth and also not understand what you're looking at and how to shift and change it. In the FeelWell Profit and Capacity Audit, it's basically a worksheet that walks you through how to check the numbers, And this is what I use in my business and life, from revenue to profit to costs, and where my time is actually going. So you can see what your own numbers are reflecting back to you. You don't have to guess, and nobody has to tell you. To get the FeelWell profit and capacity audit, check the links below. Well, that's our closing for this second session, and this is Building Well, the learning, the building, the embodiment.